My name is Giovan Alvarez. I'm a year two economics student. Yes.
So we came to interview 2 weeks ago about the budget and what were your expectations ahead of the budget being read. Now that it's been presented and it's currently being debated in Parliament, what are your thoughts?
Well, my whole thing about the budget was that I was looking for more urban and educational development, and the Minister of Finance did speak about that a lot. In fact, if I was looking at, because I have some notes here as well, he talked about urban and regional development, and he allocated, well, it was a collective, it's not a stated figure, 1.77 billion for urban and regional development. So that would be stuff such as urban infrastructure and hoping urban educational planning as well. So in my opinion, that was a big hit. It was an opportunity that he definitely went on for because that would be there to, as I would have mentioned last time, develop a lot of human capital because now the funds are there so it can be used for a stated task and that could be used to, alleviate any sort of disparities that might exist between those urban spaces.
How confident are you that that will have significant impact towards the income generation possibilities for Trinidad and Tobago and their ability to actually execute on the plans that they've made?
Okay, well, that boils down to the whole political will of the actual politicians themselves. I would say I'm confident in it, but I can't be 100% confident because there are certain exogenous factors that we can't really account for. Changing geopolitical tensions throughout the world, you can't really account for that. But as of now, I would say I'm strongly confident for it because I was looking at urban development, right, as 1.77 billion, and we could corroborate that with, of course, education getting approximately 7 billion as well. So it does show that there is a will to develop education. There's a will for it. The last time I would have said that I would have hoped that there would have been a certain level, like a fractional defunding of the Ministry of National Security because of low levels of productivity, and that did come to pass. That did, which was, in my opinion, shocking and I want to use the word expected, but it was like an expected shock, if I can say that. And in my opinion, that could lead to certain levels of productivity. But again, this is purely theoretical because what I would assume may not actually come into practice. But if it is assumed to be true that this defunding would increase levels of productivity, that could boost security. And well, what a bunch of economists would argue is that that boost in security would lead to greater levels of productivity and investment.
Hi, good day. My name is Singh, and I am a second year student at the University of the West Indies studying a BSc in economics. I'm also a Department of Economics representative for the faculty grade.
Do you have any thoughts on the budget reading? Was there anything that was special to you in the budget reading?
Yes, so there were a lot of proposed fiscal measures proposed, and I believe it arises the issue, right? Will these measures achieve the goal of diversification from the oil and gas sector? Will these measures address the issue of the foreign exchange issue going on right now? It's very difficult for us to get foreign exchange in the banks and stuff, and also there is the issue of the budget deficit. There was a deficit of 5.5 billion TT dollars, and this is a very overwhelming figure. I believe this is something that needs to be changed and addressed.
What do you think is the fastest way out of running a deficit budget for the government of Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, I believe the government should explore all options in various sectors. We should diversify from the oil and gas sector, not necessarily forget about that sector in particular, but diverse into other sectors. So there's the tourism sector, there's the agricultural sector, and so on.
The reduction of tax or the removal of tax on sporting goods but not clothing. What are your thoughts on that and that being implemented?
I believe this was a good proposed measure as it can actually have a lot of positive impacts on the economy, in particular the socio-economic aspect. So if you think about it, right, by the removal of this tax on the sporting goods, right, the goods can become more affordable to persons, right? And if you look at, in particular, the school populations or local communities that host like games and stuff, with the goods being more accessible to them, more students more students can have access to these goods and partake in sports. And if you look at it from a socio-economic perspective, right? Sports can be seen as a socializing agent for students, and we are seeing, a lot of stuff going around with bullying and stuff in schools right now, right? So by more students being involved in sports, sports can teach them about having a sense of community, making friends and working with each other.
Another tax that was removed was the import on electrical vehicles and their charging equipment.
Yes.
What are you thinking on that?
I think that was also a good measure as it creates a new environment for potential investors or persons who want to go into this field, right? It also supports the government's initiative of having at least 30% of the energy sector be renewable energy. I believe this is something very important as we should move towards a more green future in terms of energy.
My name is Alicia Rashad, and I'm studying a Bachelor's of Economics here at the University of the West Indies.
So, Alicia, now that the budget has been read and is currently being debated, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts is that I can see both sides of the minister's side as well as the opposition side. I can understand why the opposition would have some things to say that may not really correspond with the budget. Like, for example, she argued that the projected deficit might be lower, but might be a higher deficit than what Mr. Imbut is saying. And I think that may be true because also seeing in the conference today, I myself don't understand where that 1% came from in that increase in GDP. And that's, I think it needs some clearing up to do with that.
So you're wanting response from potentially Finance Minister Kwame Burt or the opposition leader herself on the actual a more
Yeah, to
accurate
provide a
figure on the
breakdown so we
deficit.
can see a better clarification of that 1% increase in GDP.
Sure. Okay. So I wanted to ask you about the idea of the national security allocation and crime. So we are potentially on track to see a record number of murders this year and by extension a higher crime rate. But we also noticed that in this year's budget, the allocation was 6.1 billion as opposed to in the previous budget 6.9. Do you think that the reduction will have any impact on the ability to solve crime or reduce the crime rate?
I definitely was not expecting a lesser allocation to national security this year in the budget. But, and yes, it will have an effect in terms of combating crime, but I also think it's how they use that money. It's not only the amount, as Dr. Amani was saying in the conference today, if they use that money to do the things that will definitely lead to a decrease in crime, for example, technology, more surveillance. I know they said they wanted to increase the amount of police vehicles as well. Instead of just putting the money into things that may not show any effect, they need to do some research and actually figure out how the crime levels could be decreased with that money. Don't look at the figures, but look at the return.
With them receiving a lower allocation and the idea that it's really not about the actual total monetary value of the allocation, but the way in which it's used, do you think that there's any additional policies that can be made by government to improve the efficacy of the departments and the police service in general?
Yeah, they can do this by requiring the certain departments to show how they use the money that they allocated in terms of national security. That will give the ministries, the higher ups, a snapshot of how exactly the money is being used to allocate to combat crime. And I think that would definitely encourage these officials to use the money in an efficient manner.
So ideally, more transparency
Yes.
on the way that money is used
Yes.
and moved around in the service.
Yeah, and receipts and proofs.
Hello, good day. My name is Nirvan. I'm a year 2 economics student at the University of the West Indies. So, given the budget the minister presented, was a very lengthy budget as well, you know. So, my thoughts on what I expected that I saw good in the budget was the energy sector. There was a big ramp on the uncertainty of what may happen on the future of the Dragon gas deal. And also, I good to see that Trinidad and Tobago, in terms of the energy sector, we are shifting the pendulum to renewable energy. When the minister stated that 30% of our energy needs would be towards renewable energy, and it is good in a sense where world leaders in the world are shifting to that pendulum to renewable energy as well. So there were other aspects such as in the education system as well, where they were implementing the e-textbook online system, and I find that very useful in the sense that we are trying to transform into a more digitalization economy. Even myself, I have questioned teachers at school why there was not an e-textbook online system. and I am glad to hear that the Ministry of Education is going to implement this e-textbook online system, because the prices of books have been high, and would make available more access to students so they can educate themselves more better and be more interactive in their classroom, etc. Another thing that the minister also discussed, and he was very prominent about it, was in terms of the digitalization of the economy. He stated that 80% of our transactions in our economy today was 80% cash transactions. And even though we are trying to transform into a digitalization economy, a part of our population still are unknown on how to go with the mobile network as well. So we have to try to phase in that in years to come with the digitalization of our economy. In terms of the energy sector, there's a whole controversy with the energy sector over gas deals. Hopefully we get gas deal with 2.7 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, and this would be very good to our Trinidad and Tobago economy in a sense. But yeah, a bit of uncertainty due to geopolitical issues shaping around the globe as well could influence our budget as well.
With the idea of digitalization comes the question of accessibility. Do you have any concerns that the implementation of these programs remove access to some people who are maybe less fortunate, less financially able to purchase the devices needed to be able to access these programs? Do you think that the government will release the rollout in ways that still allows access for everyone?
So, in the sense that in the budget itself, the minister stated that 80% of the population in Trinidad and Tobago has internet access. So, it's saying that 20% who don't have sufficient internet access. So, the ministry needs to look at in persons who, children who do not have devices, look at programs on how to provide them with devices. There are also, not only government also do this, but also other corporations in the private sector, they give laptops as corporate social responsibilities as well. My other main concern, based on the digitalization of the economy, is we need to ensure that we have increased security, because we may be prone to cyber attacks. Person's information will be online. So we need to develop that system, ensuring that we can protect our information and our information systems that are providing person's transactions, etc. Even there was the problem with TSCT, where there were a cyber attack. So we need to look at an intelligent unit to ensure that we are not hacked with person's information as we transform to the digitalization of the economy.
So we discussed last time the food import bill and agriculture and our expectations for the allocation in agriculture in this budget. Having now heard the budget being read, are there any concerns or thoughts you have on it?
So the minister, there was the whole thoughts of the food import bill, where we are about $7 billion, and if we take the share of that to our revenue net gain, that is approximately 12.9%, if we round up 50% of our total revenue. So yes, the minister stated many ways on how we can reduce that food import bill. He talked about the cocoa industry, the planting of coconuts, etc., introducing back the rice fields from Guyana, etc. But apart from ensuring that, yes, we reduce the food import bill, as in the earlier conference, on the conference on the economy, where the panelists were discussing that 50% of our local things that we could produce in Trinidad are actually imported. So even though the minister stated that, yes, we are a rich export of cocoa and other agriculture products, we need to look at adding value to these products and exporting it, so we can earn a larger amount of foreign exchange due to the shortage in the foreign exchange market as well. So the agriculture sector, in a sense, we need to look at more initiatives and how to really look at it on how to reduce our food import bill and improve the domestic economy. And I believe if we continue to deprive this from years to years, we cannot reach the technological basis of it. As in certain countries, you see a lot of technology. You see they're introducing biotechnology, in the sense that even though we have hot weathers, there are diseases. We can use biotechnology to hinder these things in the agriculture sector. So even though the agriculture sector over the years has not provided us with substantial amount of foreign exchange, um, it's beneficial to us based on our local domestic economy as well. And in the sense that, based on our budget, we are solely dependent on the community and the price of oil and gas. If you look at how our revenues are projected, it is projected based on the community of oil and gas. As the minister would say, that was one of the first things he would have been stating in the budget as well. So as over the years we have declining energy prices as well, we need to look at ways on how we can cut back, look at ways on how we can improve our local and our domestic economy.